Hey young artists, if you enjoy Draw and Paint with Your Regret on YouTube and you would like to show your support, you can find Cash App and Venmo information below. This channel is free to watch and learn from. If you like any of my art products, please go to mpbimage.com to purchase. If you purchase, make sure you leave a comment so my product maker know that you've purchased from the YouTube link. Today, once again, I'm going to introduce you to linear structure, and I'm also going to introduce you to elliptical perspective. So I definitely do know, because it's a beginner's course, it's more so just an introduction. So it's a lot of information, but it's just more of an introduction to this actual information. So just you are aware of what's going on. And that's really what the whole point is. I meant to put a question mark there. But what I'm going to pretty much introduce you to our review is what is linear structure, what is line weight variation, what is cross contour. So a lot of this we're probably not going to be able to practice. Line weight variation is very important, but how we're going to practice line weight variation is within rendering, because our line weight turns into edges. So that's why it's important for me to go over it. But just kind of keep in mind we may or may not be able to get to it for today. You already know what cross contour is, but it's always important to just know that if you're having a hard time with your structure, you can always rely on cross contouring.
Okay.
So when it comes to linear structure, all a linear structure drawn is construction drawn. So you're drawing with structure. You want to make sure that, and you're using line to draw the structure. You want to make sure when you're drawing an object, you have at very least a top, bottom, and side. So that means that with linear structure, you got to have two elements. You got to have your outlines, and you also have to have inner corners. Your inner corners is pretty much planar shapes that are connecting together. So those are the lines that are on the inside of an actual object that is describing the actual construction of the object.
Okay.
So when we're drawing, we really are giving we have to give the illusion or the lie of this object is something that a viewer can come and pick up and walk away with. So we got to give the illusion of form, the illusion of 3D, because our surface
Okay.
is a 2D surface. So when it comes to linear structure, you typically want to use sharp, thin, straight line segments, or which I need to type into this lecture, or you can definitely use organizational lines. So supporting lines, organizational lines, those are lines that helps you with construction and structure. So when it comes to a photo, if you really think about a photo, the photo doesn't give you all the information that you need,
Yeah.
which you probably have kind of figured out, and you probably know by now, even with doing a modified contour drawing. A lot of information we have to plug into that photo for a viewer to understand what we're trying to say, or at least understand what they're seeing, or giving the illusion of form. So you want to make sure you are thinking about that when it comes to linear structure. So construction drawing, similar to linear structure, the structure of an object and the object's top, bottom, and side. Its form, which is 3D, and its planes, which is shape. So once again, we need
Which we did
lines.
last time with the taking the planes off, kind of.
Yep. Yep. So once again, we need line to create shape, and we need shape to create form. So those are the elements that we want to make
Okay,
sure
wait,
we.
wait. Let me write that down. Line
Okay. We need line to create
two
shape, and we need shape to create form.
plus shape to create. Okay.
Yeah.
Form being kind of like the 3D.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, got it.
All right. So once again, all of this it's very important when it comes to drawing, especially if you want your drawing to look realistic to a viewer eye. And on the other hand of that, like can you argue and say that you want your drawing to look a little bit more abstract? Yes. But if you're really trying to learn how to draw and draw realistically or use representation, you want to make sure you're getting the construction of the drawing as accurate as you possibly can. Because
Okay.
that's really what's important. So yes, this look a little bit overwhelming. So although this is more advanced, but I do want to give a good representation of what I mean by drawing form.
Okay.
For us, we're going to lean very much on the simplified side because our objects are a sphere, that's a very simple linear structure. Or even if we start to move into spheres or cylinders and cubes, those are still very simple structures to draw, or objects to draw and draw the structure of it. But this gives you a better idea of what I'm trying to say with how we want to have as much information that's happening on the inside of a drawing as much as what the outside is doing.
Mm.
So if we're looking at this spray bottle, I'm gonna be honest with you. Although it's just a line drawing with very beautiful line weight variation, I definitely do know it gives me the illusion that all right, I can pick this spray bottle up and I can spray whatever that's inside
Yeah.
of it because of how much information is drawn within the spray bottle. We have the top of the spray bottle, I guess you say nozzle or head, the side of it. We can see in the structure on the inside as well. We can see the top, the side, and the front of where the water would come out. The spray, I guess you call it the spray gun parts. But you see the front, you see the
Yeah.
side, you also see these little thin lines that are drawing the structure on the inside as well. So we also see connections. We see how the head connects to the neck of the bottle, how the neck connects to the body of the bottle. So all of this information that we're seeing are our inner corners, which are our planar shifts. If we didn't have the top of the neck, the front of the neck, the side of the neck, and these connections, we wouldn't understand that it's 3D form. So it's
Yeah.
very important to make sure that you are doing your best to draw this information within the drawing because once again, a photo isn't really giving us this information. We have to pull from life and add it to that photo. So once again, this is a little extreme, but it gives you an idea, of what you need to do when it comes to drawing these shapes and how they need to connect together to describe the form that you want your viewer to see.
And it almost looks like for the spray bottle, you did a lot of like big rectangles.
Yes, yeah,
A
yeah.
really tall
So,
rectangle to like first
yes,
outline bottle and then kind of work in through there.
yeah. So if we're looking at the bottle, we are looking at the very the very simple proportion box to start with.
Yeah.
Typically when we draw, and I'm going to talk about proportion boxes today. So, and in all honesty, as crazy as it may sound, um, we did proportion boxes last week with our modified contour. So
Okay.
remember when I showed you how to draw a square and then draw a circle inside a
Yes, yes,
square,
yeah.
and the circle height and width has to be the same. It's the
Okay.
same thing as a 2D proportion box because we need to know what is the width, that ratio. Is it a 1 to 1? Is it a 1 to 2? Because we need to get the width and height. So that's a 2D proportion box. When we're looking at this drawing that's here, this is a 3D proportion box because we have the width of the object, we also have the height of the object, and we also have the depth of the
Okay.
object. Typically when I teach proportion boxes, I don't go into um 3D proportion boxes because a lot of times my students are have not gone over perspective
Yeah.
yet. So I haven't gone over perspective with you.
Okay.
So it would be a little bit more difficult to do 3D. But the 2D, I've already introduced it to you, so I'm going to continue to talk a little bit more about it too. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me close out the grid. So we did touch on line weight variation last week. So once again, we do want to make sure we're staying on top of just kind of practicing that when we are drawing line. So you want to make sure you're focusing on soft form, sharp, hard, fuzzy, broken, or lost lines. All of those things are so important because these lines describe something. Whether you're having a sharp lines that you're using to describe cubes or soft lines that you're using to describe a sphere, you want to make sure you're thinking about what line type you're pulling out to describe what you're seeing. Typically, what's happening on the inside, which is our planar shift connections, we want to use thinner lines and lighter lines to describe what's happening on the inside, like what we seen with that spray bottle. So these are things that we want to make sure we are thinking about when we are actually drawing. So once again, we did see this as well, but if you're looking at this actual composition, once again, when we're thinking about line type, we're also thinking about um, line type within a composition. So the objects that are closer to us is going to have darker lines. It's still going to have lighter lines on the inside that's describing the structure of the actual object.
Okay.
As the objects that are in the middle ground, those lines are going to be a little bit lighter on the outside. They're not going to be as dark, as thick as this little chord that's here. They're going to be more in the mid-tone side of line value. And then what's happening on the inside, we have thinner lines and also lighter lines because that is describing the structure of the objects that's there. If you can see there, if we move further back in the actual composition, so we have foreground, middle ground, background, these lines are very, very light because we are dealing with atmosphere perspective. So we're dealing with having lighter lines in the background to describe depth within our paper. So the objects that are in the background, this actual silhouette of a person, I believe this is an easel, this is another easel. These objects, their lines are very, very light and also very, very faint. But it gives us an idea of, oh, this is the closest object to us. These are the further objects to us. So that's how we are, selling space by using values in line. Um, so once again, we did talk about cross contouring last week. But when it comes to cross contouring, it's very important just to understand it will definitely help you if you're having a hard time drawing planar shifts. Or have you having a hard time just describing what's happening on the inside of an object? Coming in with
Okay.
cross contour, that definitely does help us with 3D form. And once again, if you are having a hard time seeing planar shifts, it's always great to switch over to cross contouring. Our brain will understand what's happening.
Okay.
So when it comes to today, I do want to make sure I'm talking about citing and measuring. It's not a lot that we can do because we are working from a photo. So we're probably going to use most of just relationships when it comes to measuring, what is the height and width in relationship to one object next to another object, so on and so forth. But we still could come in with proportion boxes on our photo just to kind of help us stay within proportion. That way we're not drawing things out of scale or out of proportions or drawing things that are too small within proportion. We want to make sure that we're measuring everything and making sure not only our positive forms, but also our negative spaces as accurate as well. So when it comes to citing and measuring, we have three elements to it. It's comparative measuring as well as site sizing, and then also relational measuring. So citing, there are three elements to citing. So it's relative or comparative, proportional relationship angles and their relationships to verticals and horizontals. And verticals and horizontal relationships between various points are landmarks. So using plumb and level lines. So I am going to talk about that. For us, we're going to rely on our photos to get proportion boxes down. So we're going to use a ratio. So like our sphere is a ratio of 1 to 1. You can use that ratio to find other ratios for other objects. So that means, let's say you have a sphere and you have a cylinder next to it. Typically, cylinders are, depending on the design of it, they're taller than a sphere. So
Mm-hmm.
that cylinder could be a ratio of 1 to 2 for all we know, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to rely on that to help us with our proportions. And you can still use those measurements to measure space as well. That way it can eliminate um, an object being drawn in one spot and we're probably seeing it, or a student could draw it in another spot, but from the photo, we're seeing it closer than what it really are. So sometimes measuring your negative space and placement definitely does help with that. So when it comes to proportion boxes, this gives you a little bit more of a visual of it. So although today we're going to focus on getting our linear structure down for our sphere drawing, if we can get to linear structure with drawing 3 objects, that's good because that's going to help us, or at least help you with understanding how to start a drawing, how to get to a finished product linearly. So that's one of my goals for today to just kind of help you with that. But we have an image that is here. And this image is just pretty much describing what is the width and also height of this actual vase. So because we need width and height, that's going to help us get our proportion box down. Also, I don't know if you can see this because I know it's very faint even on my end. If we are able to practice drawing multiple objects, I'm going to start you again with getting down your envelope shape that's here. And then we're going to quickly line gesture our objects in. And then each object will be able to give a proportion box of width and height. And really what you're doing is drawing that box over your actual gesture drawing. And then you can start the construction drawing from there. So
Okay.
once you have your width and also your height, for your object, as you can see, you want to start with very simple shapes. So this vase, you could easily look at it and see that this is a sphere for the belly, and
Mhm.
this is probably just a rectangle for the neck, right? It is a tapered rectangle. So it tapers on the inside when it starts to connect to the belly of the vase. But just to start with, it's always good to get an idea for the height of the belly and an idea for the height of the neck within your proportion box. So that also will help you stay within proportion. And then from there, you start to develop it. So you start to get it to look, if you think about a modified contour, you start to get it to look more and more like what you are actually seeing. You also want to think about connections, where the ellipse is on the vase, where the ellipse is for the footing of the vase, because typically there's two ellipses that are there. So this is when we start to move into that structure and construction of the actual object. So also, another thing that helps us with sighting and measuring is plumb and level lines. So plumb lines are pretty much vertical lines, level lines are pretty much horizontal lines. You can also use diagonal lines as well, just to make sure things are lining up how they're supposed to. So what I mean by that is that if we take a plumb line from, let's say this figure is here, you can see that it connects to the trapezius muscles of the shoulder, connects to his pectoral muscles or nipples side of the actual hip. And then it also connects to some areas onto the cube that this figure is sitting on. So this is very important because plumb lines help you with measuring vertically, but also you can start to move across just to make sure things are in the right spot as need be in relationship to each other. Horizontal lines is the same thing. You're measuring horizontally, but it also can help you with vertical, like head heights, making sure the length of things are accurate. For this instance, you can use a head height to measure vertically down, or you can use a head height to measure across horizontally. So these are all just tactics that artists use to make sure they're staying within scale and proportions within their drawing. Same thing with diagonal lines. You're just lining things up to make sure things are lining up diagonally, but that also helps you with placements of whether you're drawing a figure or if you're drawing an object, it just helps with just making sure that you're measuring things accurately and putting things in the right spot.
Okay.
So once again, I know I didn't talk much about organizational lines, but organizational lines, I separate the two. Like if I'm just going to talk about myself, if I'm using a supporting line, I know that I'm using this line as a line that is for construction. So this line is not going to be a very heavy dark line, but it's going to be darker than my gesture, and I know these lines are just going to help me get the construction of the object down. So I like using straight lines because for me, I know I can always curve out a line later. I don't like starting with curved lines too much because sometimes they're not 100% accurate. But there's times where you need a curved line, and that's typically what I use organizational lines for, where I'm using kind of like more of a free form line or more of a curved line. I'm still using it for construction, but I'm just making sure that it's there to just help guide me through the process. So just kind of an example of that. Although this is a very rough draft of an organizational drawing, but you can still see the proportion box that are here. You can see that some of our objects are kind of roughly drawn in. You can see the ellipses that are actually there. But all of these lines are just construction lines that are helping us understand the form of what we are actually drawing. So it's very important to just kind of keep that in mind. So when it comes to ellipse and a little bit of perspective, I do have to talk about this because, like I said, if we do get to um, draw from the photo that actually has multiple geometric objects, we need to know how to actually draw an ellipse. So I am going to start with sighting. So how we see ellipses is by our actual eyesight. Our eyesight is pretty much it's basically a horizon line for us. So I always tell students if you are trying to understand what a horizon line is, it's pretty much where the sky and also land meets. So we have seen a horizon line probably multiple times when we're outside. But when we're inside and we're thinking about a horizon line, we
Yeah.
have to use our actual eye level. So when we're looking at things, we see ellipses are they're basically circles that are moving into space. We see them differently from different levels. So if we're actually looking at an ellipse directly at it, if it's closer to our eye level or horizon line, the ellipse is a little bit more flattened down. If we're looking over let's say a cup or a cylinder, we're looking up and down at it. That means that ellipse is probably going to resemble closer to a circle than it is an oval shape. So all of that is very important when it comes to ellipses because you want to make sure you're drawing them accurately when you're drawing a cylinder or a cup, so on and so forth. So this gives us a better idea of what I'm saying. So if someone's eye level is here, the ellipse that is closer to their eye level is going to be flattened if the object is moving away, right? You can see how the ellipse opens up as it get closer, oh, sorry, as it moves away from the eye level. As we move to this ellipse, it opens up more because it's moving
Oh,
more from
I
the eye
see.
level. This ellipse opening up more because it has moved away from the eye level even more. The last one is open, pretty open wide because of the fact that it's so far away from this person eye level. So we want to make sure we're thinking of that rule when we're drawing. Sometimes young artists tend to, I think it's more of an optical illusion. I don't even know if it's that, but sometimes artists that accidentally flip the two, they'll have ellipses closer to the eye level, wider, and then away they'll flatten it. So you just want to make sure you're thinking of the rule that okay, if something is closer to my eye level that is curving, which is a circle it's going to be more flattened as it moves away. It's going to open up. So the same here when it comes to this handout. Your eye level is here. Even if things are moving up or circles are moving up into space, they're starting to widen as they move away from your eye level.
Mm.
Same thing if they're under your eye level, they start to widen as they move away from your eye level. So these are just tactics that we have to use or think about when we're actually drawing to make sure we're drawing things accurately. So last week I talked about, and also you practice how to draw an actual circle. So you always want to make sure you're starting with a square. That ratio is a 1-to-1 ratio. Then you come in with an X because that's going to get you the center of the circle and also the center horizontally as well. Excuse me. These points are what you need to complete your circle. So you want to make sure you are doing your best to hit a point, curve, hit a point, curve, hit a point, curve, hit a point, curve. So all these
Okay.
are very important when you're drawing a circle. Why do you need to know this for drawing ellipses? Because all an ellipse is a circle that is moving into space. So we still have to think about the
Oh.
same concept. So typically 100% if you're trying to draw an ellipse, you need to use perspective. There's other things that I know I use when it comes to drawing ellipses. I'm sure there's other methods, but to 100% get an ellipse drawn into space accurately, you want to use perspective. So what we're looking at is a horizon line that is here. So where the sky and land meet, that gives you an idea of it. Or if you're drawing inside, it's your actual eye level. This point that is here is a vanishing point, right? This is our square that has moved from
Uh,
being in the foreground and also it has moved from um, being a plane that is facing us, right? That's the best way I
okay.
can explain it.
Now
So
it's like flat, kind of.
yes, you got it. Now that plane is lying flat on the ground. Yes, you got it. So, what's happening is the front of the plane is here. This plane is parallel to our picture plane. the corners for this plane are converging to your vanishing point that's here. So this is giving
Oh,
us
because
the fact that
the middle of the X is in line with the middle of the point.
yes. So I haven't gotten there yet, but you're
Okay,
catching on
sorry.
rather quickly. So now that we have this plane that's here, right, and that's this is our square, it's just flattened into space. You draw down an X that's here because this is important because we still need to have, our horizontal lines and also our vertical lines. But these lines are moving into space. So now that we got our X down, we want to come in and we want to put in our horizontal line. So that's the horizontal line that crosses over the X in the center. And then also in the center of that X, we have our vertical line that is moving to our vanishing point that's here.
Okay.
So this
So
is
you always do horizontal before the vertical
it's
after
either
the
or. It's either
okay.
or. What
Okay.
it is right now, we have our major and minor axes. So I believe the center axis that move towards the vanishing point, 'cause I don't want to forget this, I always get it confused, but I believe that is our major, and I think the minor is the horizontal line. So I need to double
Okay.
check that just to make sure. But we need those lines. So remember when we're drawing our circle, it's the same thing for our ellipse. We need to have this vertical line, this horizontal line. That way, when we draw in our circle or our ellipse within this square, we want to make sure we're meeting all of our 4 points. So that's very important. So this is what happened when we're connecting all of our dots
Hmm.
together for our actual circle. So if we're drawing a cylinder,
Wow.
this is what we pretty much would need. All a cylinder is two ellipses that are connected together by this I believe it's the minor axis. So this point and this point will connect together to create a
Oh,
vertical line, and that will create our actual cylinder that's there.
oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting, but it's almost, I know for me, when I was a student and I seen this, I was like, oh, that makes drawing a cylinder so much more easier. Now that I understand the steps, of what I need to do.
Yeah.
And granted, seeing it is one thing, but actually doing it is also another as well. But this is more of the accurate way of drawing ellipses and drawing a cylinder. I am going to talk about a more intuitive way of drawing an ellipse, where you're thinking about shape. So if we think about drawing a circle, we need to have a square. When we think about um, the overall shape of what an ellipse is, depending on its size, it's pretty much an oval. So we still need to think of, okay, what is the overall shape that I can use to draw out this oval? So I always tell students, think of a rectangle. Because if we have a square to draw a circle, that plane is towards us. If we got to move this circle into space, draw a rectangle because that's going to give us more of an oval-like shape that we need. So this is the more intuitive way of drawing an ellipse. Once you have your rectangle down, you come in with your X. That's going to give you your major and minor axes. So that'll give you your 4 points. You want to make sure you're curving, hitting a point, curving, hitting a point, curving, hitting a point, curving, hitting a point. So that's this the more intuitive way. It's not 100% accurate, but it gets you close to where you need to go rather quickly. But it's more of the intuitive way of drawing an actual ellipse. So as you can see here, the third step, the ellipse is drawn in. It looks pretty accurate to our eye. That's all we need. So once again, this point and this point, you draw your vertical line, and then you're done with your cylinder. So that is pretty much the structure of your cylinder from there. Then from here, you can start your shading process if that's what you are approaching and trying to do. So I do want to talk about this because once again, if we do get to drawing a cube today, you do want to make sure you understand what are the structures you need to look for to help you with drawing the cube accurately in space. And what I mean by that, if we look at step one, which is here, we see a vertical line that's pretty much a corner. And when you see that on a cube, that tells you that, okay, this is 2 point perspective because we have a left plane and a right plane. So that means that we have a right vanishing point, a left vanishing point on our horizon line somewhere. So, although that's not placed here, but we have to think in that manner. So another thing you want to make sure once you see that corner, you have to ask yourself, okay, what are the angles? What is the angles that I'm seeing? Uh, you can use a pencil to line up the angle to your photo, or you can use a skewer to line up the angle to your photo. That angle you have to translate onto your paper. Once you get the angle of your left and right plane, as you can see in step two, this drawing pretty much just draws up all of the vertical lines for the cube. Then from there, it's just kind of connecting the dots type thing. So if we are trying to draw out our right plane and also our left plane, what we want to do is we want to make sure this line and this line, they may look parallel to our eye, they're not. They're converging to some type of vanishing point somewhere. So you want to always make sure that you're thinking in that way. Because if you do it parallel, then you're moving into isometric perspective, and that's not what we want. Same thing here for this plane. This line and this line, they're converging to that same vanishing point. Um,
Mm.
Same thing for this plane for our front cube. This line is converging to some type of vanishing point that is the same as this line as well. So these two lines, once again, are not parallel together. They may look it, but they're not. So you can see how we're just kind of like connecting these dots together.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to
Just
step
go a little
four,
cute just to try it.
yeah, when it comes to step four, once again, you're just finishing out your back plane. That way you have your top, your front, and your back, and also your bottom that's here. So once again, you're drawing through. You want to make sure you're connecting these shapes together. You're getting your outlines and your inner corners together. So this will be a completed linear structure for these simple forms. And then this is when you start the shading process, and then of course you get to your end product.
Oh.
What I can
Will
do,
we do shading?
setting in
Will we do shading?
for our sphere, that's our actual project
Okay.
for our finished project for next week. But like I said today, I do want us to at least focus on linear structure, which is just drawing with line. And then next week we'll get to how to distribute values and like logic principles and all that stuff.
Okay.
And I may get you started on values today. I'll see how the time
Yeah.
goes for you. Um, Another thing I was just thinking, I'm gonna see if I could screenshot these images and just put it in your
Yeah.
Google Drive folder. That
Oh,
way, if you
perfect.
want to practice with this on your own, you have the
Yeah.
steps that are there to help you practice. Yeah.
I might grab my ruler really quick too.
Go ahead. Okay, so for today, which is actually our assignment, I really want us to get down um the layout of what the assignment is going to be. So we're going to do it linearly to start with because next week we're going to take the same assignment, the same drawing, and we're going to start rendering with light and shade. So today is just more so prepping the drawing and getting the construction of the drawing down. The good thing is you already know how to draw a circle. And so that
Thanks to
means
you.
that
Yeah.
we exactly we have to draw in our actual shadow edge, and we also have to draw in our cast shadow for today. So if you're hearing me saying shadow edge and cast shadow, those are part of light logic principles. But linearly, we need to have that down to start with for today. Another thing I'm going to have you do is draw out a value scale. So the value scale is going to be an inch in height and 5 inches across. So it's a band of inch in height and 5 inches across because we need to have 1 inch squares to help us with a five value scale. So we just need to do that linearly for today.
Okay.
So let me give you a better idea of what we need to do for uh, this project just to get it drawn out.
And then we're doing little 1 by 1 squares, you said?
Yeah. So what I have up on the screen is, although this is our finished product, this is what our finished product should look like for next week. We have to
Oh,
get the
wow.
linear structure down. So for today, although we're still using a photo, we're going to get down the drawing of the sphere. We're going to get down our shadow edge and cast shadow
Okay.
linearly. And then this is our 1 inch by 5 inch band that we're going to use for our value scale. So we have a value scale 1 through 5. So that means we
Okay.
need to have 1, which is the paper, 5, which is the darkest black that you could get with your pencils. And then we have our different degrees of gray on the inside. So this is a light gray, a mid-tone gray, and a dark gray that's here. So this is the goal for next week. And this is what we want to get
Oh.
with rendering and shadow. So let me get back to week 3 for us. And I'm gonna stop sharing because I need to drop in a break and then you'll come back and I'll help you with drawing linear structure for our 3 object photo. So you guys, in this clip, I'm going to go over just a little bit linear structure. So once again, because I have a linear structure video, I'm not going to go into major details with it because of the fact that it'll just be too long of a video. So I am definitely going to do a time lapse, or I'm just going to speed up the process. But I just want to show the process for students from start to finish and what they should do when it comes to linear structure. So I'm gonna go ahead and get quiet and I'm just gonna record my process. I may do a voiceover, but I will see when I get into the editing process. So hopefully you guys see everything. I'm just gonna try and zoom in just a bit more, that way you can see, and we're gonna get started. Hey everybody, so I'm in with a quick voiceover. So right now I am going to start with an envelope shape. So an envelope shape is pretty much getting a whole shape around your composition to start with. This is just for placement. You just need to place your composition on your paper as a whole. I'm also measuring with my pencil. I have problems with angles. My students know that. So if you see my pencil go up and down, it's just that I'm trying to figure out the right angle. Typically, an envelope shape is not it's not 100% perfect, but it's a start. So now I'm going in with a line gesture. So you want to, once you have your envelope shape down, quickly get a line gesture of all your objects in your composition. It's important to do that because you want to see your composition as a whole before you start. You don't want to go straight into tunnel vision. It tends to happen if you start with one object, move to the next, and then move to the next. Sometimes getting a full gesture in or a line gesture in at the beginning definitely does help. A good thing too with gestures, keep the line work very early in light and also simple. Think of some geometric shapes that you could quickly put down and apply to what you're seeing. I actually went right now to go sharpen my pencil, so I took a small break for that. I'll be back soon. So So now, as you can see, I have my full gesture in. Also with line gestures, think about placement and also negative space or negative shape in between each object. That way you know how far things are kind of early in. You can always adjust it later. Next, what I'm going to do is I am going to do a proportion box over my sphere. So a proportion box is basically a box that helps you with not growing outside of your proportion and or scale of the object. And I'm doing a 2D proportion box. And typically this is what you use when you are sighting and measuring. So I'm measuring the actual sphere. Typically a sphere is a square anyway with a circle inside of it. So it's very easy to kind of get the measurement of a sphere. So it's a ratio of 1 to 1. Um, but it's always good to start with a proportion box. I always start with the smallest object, and then I use those measurements to work out my bigger objects, as well as measure in between space. Also right now, as you can see, I'm using a supporting line. I typically draw with straight lines. I just need to get an idea of the structure, but not use a line that is a line that is for completion. I just need to use a line to help support my structure. So it's kind of the line before you say, oh, this is the line that I want, and this is the completed line. As of right now, I am measuring as well, again. So I'm using my skewer as a tool. I do have a video on this. If you're interested, you can just scroll through and look through my videos, and you should be able to find sight and measuring. So once again, I'm using my skewer as a measurement tool on my paper, and I'm trying to get the measurements of my cup. So I'm getting in another proportion box for my cup. And when you are drawing, or at least with sighting and measuring, you just want to make sure your proportions are right. So I'm constantly measuring all the time, just to make sure that my proportions are accurate. Sometimes students, get tired. I was a student too. I used to get very lazy, and I'm like, do I have to measure it? It's always good to measure all the time, double check, make sure it's right, before you start to lock the drawing in. So what I am doing right now, I'm getting started to draw out a box for my ellipse. So with this box, because the ellipse for the cup is actually smaller than the width of the actual cup, I'm getting a box in. I want to make sure the box is mirrored on both sides of my center line, as well as bottom and top of the box. So they need to all be the same in size. So I quickly gesture in my ellipse, and then I go into that ellipse and I start to pull out a supporting line. So I'm not really sure if the ellipse is right, but I need some type of supporting line or organization line to help me with the process. So now I'm still adjusting the ellipse. And the next thing I am doing, you guys, I am getting in not the bottom, not the base of the cup, but I'm getting I guess the bottom of the cup, but not the base, is what I'm trying to say. So that's technically an ellipse as well. It's just a ellipse that is on top of the base ellipse of the cup. And you typically want to draw in another box for that. As you can see, that's what I'm getting in right now. So once again, I kind of gestured in that ellipse, which gives me a lot of lines, and then I have a lot of lines to choose from. I typically have a lot of lines in my drawings, and I'll leave them because once again, it helps me get the right line. So it's okay. I know a lot of young artists, they tend to draw a line and erase, draw a line and erase. It's okay to leave the line. Just make sure you start off really light with your line work and just build on top. So now I'm just getting the cylinder body of the cup in. It's very easy, just draw up 2 lines. I have to connect it to another ellipse. So as you see, I'm using my Tough Stuff eraser just to erase out a little bit of mistakes, but I typically erase out to where I see a ghost, and a ghost line is basically, it's light enough for me to see it, but too light for the camera to see it or anyone else to see it. So it's always good, once again, leave your lines. It's okay if they're on your paper and they're light. This is basically a construction drawing, and that's all linear structure is. So um, linear structure is basically outlines as well as inner corners are outlines, and planar shift lines or planar shift connections. I think that probably sounds better. So it's outlines and planar shift connections, and that's what um, linear structure is. I gotta remember that planar shift connection. So right now, you guys, I am gesturing in an ellipse for the top of my cup. And now I am connecting my 4 parts of that ellipse. So when you see a point, you want to quickly turn and go to the next point, quickly turn, go to the next point. Um, if you've never drawn ellipses, once again, I have a video on that. And I think it's on my other linear structure video. And you should be able to learn the difference between do's and don'ts of ellipses. This ellipse, you guys, is quite wobbly, I can tell. But I'll pull it together eventually. So, you guys, this is real time. So linear structure, it takes some time because you're really trying to get the right proportions, the right construction lines down. You want to make sure you have form. The objects they need to look like they're close to realistic or realistic in its linear form. So remember, you're getting the construction of it. You're getting outlines. You're also getting planar shifts, connections um, to help with the end product of getting 3D form. So as you can see, I'm getting the lip of the cup in. So now in my inserted photo, I actually see the ellipse opening, but I actually took the photo after I was done. So I didn't get the right perspective when I took the photo. So, but you get an idea of what I was drawing and that I was drawing from life. So right now I am cleaning up my supporting lines on my sphere. So I am rounding out or curving out those straight line segments. So you can always start with a straight line and curve it out later. It's okay. So as of right now, my sphere is really just a shape. Because it's linear, I will go in with a center line and I'll round it out vertically and horizontally just to give it a little bit more form. I could always go in with wrapping lines to describe that that is a sphere if need be. But I just kept it very simple. So now, you guys, I am working on my proportion box for my pear. If you've been a student of mine, you probably know that I love to draw pears. I don't know why. They're just fun to draw. So when I draw, I tend to, I'm kind of everywhere. I hop around. I never really stay in one spot. So although I was trying to get an idea for my proportion box for my pear, I decided, oh, well, let me get a proportion box in for the handle for my cup because that needs a proportion box. I didn't put it in my original proportion box because I just wanted it to be separate. Also, right now, you guys, I'm thinking about spacing. So I need to know how far is that pear in relationship to the cup. So you want to think about that negative space, negative shapes. They're just as important as our positive space and positive shapes. Right now, I'm coming in with a organizational line or supporting line. That way I can get an idea where that pear overlaps over the handle. You'll see real soon I'll eventually get the proportion box in for my pear. So now I'm starting to get in my proportion box for my pear. So I have my proportion box in with my measurements of height and width of that pear. And you guys, if you start with a proportion box, just like our envelope shape, it's okay to go outside of it just a little bit. If you were not 100% correct with your measurements, it's okay. As long as you're not coming out a great deal, um, you're fine. If you come out a lot, that means that your original measurements were very wrong, or just not right. I don't want to say very wrong. They just wasn't quite there. Um, so as you can see, I came out just a little bit on the pear. So I'm using, once again, straight line segments, which are straight lines that are thin, and basically they're more for construction. So I can get the structure of the pear down, and you can always round out straight lines later. getting in a center line for my pear, and because my pear is kind of going into space, so I need an angle center line, angular center line. So right now I'm working out my planar shifts, getting the top, bottom, side, front of the pear. So I'm using organic shapes, but they probably look more geometric. But I'm using organic shapes that are connecting together to create those planar shifts connections, so getting our inner corners in. So remember, linear structure is outline, the inner corners. We have to work inside out in order to get the form of the object. Alright, so my pear is in. I'm changing my center line. I wanted to go with the characteristics of my pear. So that means I'm describing a little bit of dips and swells with that center line. Getting the stem in, correcting my angles for the top of the pear, or the front. The planar shift that's closest to it, basically. So right now I'm leaving my pear pretty much within, or I'm leaving the pear with construction lines are my supporting lines. And now I'm working on the handle of the cup. So once again, I jump around a lot. I don't stay in one position or one item and say, oh, I gotta finish that. I just continue to move around and move around until the drawing start to develop as a whole. So I'm checking my angles, making sure they're right. Got my tough stuff pen eraser back in, erasing out some stuff, or at least making a line of ghost. So right now I'm getting the inside of the handle drawn in. So sometimes it's good to break down forms into shapes, and then I always tell my student you kind of like deconstructed it to reconstruct it in your drawing. So sometimes if I see something kind of complicated, I'll start with one shape, and then I'll draw the next shape closest to it, and then the next shape until it starts to create form. Because really all planar shifts is shapes that are connected together to create form. That's it. So sometimes it's easier for us to draw a shape than sometimes than to draw the actual form. And just make sure you're connecting them together. So now I'm getting the side of the handle in. I'm using straight line segments or organizational lines. I'm getting the top of the handle in. So you can see all of the shapes that connects together. Now we have 3D form. So we have a whole handle. A whole handle that's there. So now I'm going in and I am curving out my straight lines. So I'm getting to some lines that I'm saying, okay, these are accurate lines. I'm gonna lock them in. And I'm going to think a little bit about line weight variation, things that are closest to us, darker, move away, lighter. Same thing for the whole composition or an object. I don't get that many different lines in this drawing, but I get enough. I think the reason why I get so many because I know I needed to be dark on camera. So I had to draw dark in general. So pretty much you guys throughout the whole drawing, now I'm just working on a bit of line work on my pear. Probably go back to that sphere, also the handle. Getting close to being done, you guys.
Oliver, stop it. Hey.
Alright, so I'm still working on a little bit of line work in the cup. Darkening some lines, leaving some lines a little light and fuzzy. Hey guys, now I am working on the sphere. I'm lightening up the lines because I basically drew through that sphere just so I can get the construction right of that cup. So right now I'm just lightening up my lines just a bit because technically we don't see that. I'm getting a rapid line in, horizontal one, and a vertical one, just to give a little bit of form to my sphere. All right, that's it. Bye. So Taylor, hopefully this gives you an idea of how to start the drawing. Although we're working from a photo, the good thing, we're working from a photo. So what
Yeah.
that means is that a lot of these kind of envelope shaped lines you can draw on your photo if it was printed out. Your proportion boxes you could draw on your photo if it was printed out. But that would help you because that's easy transferable onto your paper. Because you're able to see, your proportion box, you're able to see spacing or how far you can measure these things out, even with a ruler, because that photo is there. But I wanted you to really see the process coming in with the envelope shape, line gesture, using proportion boxes, drawing in an actual ellipse, just making sure it's as accurate as possible. Even getting the structure of a cup. Typically, a cup has a lip to it, so it has depth when it comes to its lip. Sometimes when I see students draw a cup, they won't draw the actual lip. So it's just two
Mm.
ellipses inside each other. Also with the handle, you see the top of the handle, the side of the handle, I guess you could say it's the bottom of the handle as it starts to bend and attach to the body of the cup. And then we have our pair. So once again, if because if planar shows you have to see it. Some students see it, some students don't. But here, as you can see, we have the front of the pair, the top, the sides, giving you a bit of planar shows for the belly of the pair. So we do see the top rounding. This is where it starts to indent. This is the side. So these are two planar shifts to kind of describe the indent and as we're starting to move. So the dips and swells. So even if you're just like, I don't see that, using cross contouring would do the same thing, So it just kind of gives you an idea of how we want to approach this drawing. So let me that way I can
Cute
give you a
people too.
yeah, and I'm gonna talk about that too. So let me remove hopefully this cast shadow don't cause too much of an issue. So I quickly gotten down my envelope shape that's here, and
Okay.
then I quickly gestured everything in. So I just wanted you to see just kind of where that step one and step two is.
Okay.
So where you're at, you've already came in and you've gotten in your proportion box. So once again, we want to make sure that our height and our width are the same. So I'm just going to take a sheet of paper and I'm just going to mark it onto a sheet of paper. That way I can get the actual, or at least the same measurement for my width. So I'm going to line up that mark with the height line and I'm going to mark it onto my paper and I'm just going to complete my square. So that's a very quick way to get that box in without, or the square in without having to measure. So I just took a sheet of paper and just took that unit and then turned it horizontal. So that's a
Uh,
way to do it to correct it and move faster than the ruler if you want to do that. So of course you already know how to draw a circle from here, making sure you draw on it in your X. And I'm just drawing in that X very lightly. And once again, you can switch over to your ruler for this, but you want to make sure that um, when you're dividing your square, you want to make sure what's happening on one side is happening on the other, the same height and also the width. So that's going to help you with drawing a more accurate circle. So even my four squares need to be even as well, because that's going to help me get a more accurate circle. Other thing that I wanted to talk about is ellipses because I know um you're going to end up moving on to your ellipses. So what I'm going to do is if we are thinking about our photo, because I do have to switch over to the photo, I'm going to take a measurement uh from the sphere. So I'm just drawing on the photo. I'm going to take that measurement because I'm going to need it to apply it to my sphere. So
Okay.
now that I have the mark there, that is my unit, or at least one of my units, my width for my sphere. I'm going to take this and I'm going to line it up to the best of my ability because I know there's a lot of information that's lost. So I'm just going to draw down uh, the continuation of my ellipse, I mean my cylinder. I'm going to take this measurement and I'm going to line it up to the cylinder. So for what I can see, that unit is a little bit smaller. So when I transfer that measurement over, I just got to remember that I need to come in just a little bit, probably about a fourth of an inch. I'm gonna
Okay.
I'm gonna take the same unit, or at least the width measurement, and I'm lining it up and I'm saying, okay, this is the height, but it don't complete my height right now, right? So I'm gonna move uh this width measurement up and I'm gonna mark it here. Because this is important because once again, if I'm trying to get in the proportion box to make sure my cylinder, and let me draw this line darker, to make sure that my cylinder is the proper height, I just took the width of my sphere, I got the width of my cylinder, and also the height of my cylinder. So now I can go in and I can just complete my box. So I would have to do this same thing onto my paper, my actual drawing.
Okay.
So once I have the proper height, so once again, I'm taking it's either or 'cause it's the same. It's the same width measurement. I'm taking this, I'm flipping it over, I'm marking it, and then I gotta remember that I need to come in just a little bit, and then I need to take this same measurement, and I just want to make sure it's the same one, and then I'm gonna draw mark one uh unit or width measurement, and then I need to make sure the other one is just a little bit taller. So I wasn't that much off with my gesture.
Yeah.
So now I could come in
Wow.
and complete my proportion box. And then from here, when it comes to the envelope, the ellipse, I can come in. I want to think of a rectangle. And of course, you have a ruler. I don't, but it'll look better because you have a ruler.
I don't need one.
So once I have the rectangle in, right, I'm gonna once again come in with another X, then a space. That's gonna get me to the center line. I'm just gonna pull that line straight up. And now I want to start to get in my major line. This is my minor axis, so major axis, minor axis. I want to remember my four parts that are here. So now that I have this divided, I can gesture in. So I'm just lightly ghosting in and gesturing in my lips so I can see it. Like you always want to see it before you start to actually draw in or use a gesture to see it. Then you can use your organizational line or a supporting line to
Mhm.
help you with the construction of your ellipse. So now that I see it, I have a guideline in so many ways. I'm going to start with one point. So I'm gonna start with this first point. I'm gonna curve at this point, and I'm gonna continue to curve until I get to my next point, and then continue to start
Or is
back at
that for the bottom of the cylinder
yep,
there?
it's for the bottom of the cylinder. Yeah. So I'm gonna curve at this point, and then I'm gonna continue to curve until I get to the next point. This side, I'm gonna start the curve at this point, and I'm gonna continue to curve at the next point. Um, do the same thing, continue to curve to the next point so I can complete it. So, um, this is how I'm able to start my ellipse for my cylinder. And as you can see, I'm drawing through these boxes because I need to make sure I got the accurate proportions, the widths, and the heights that are there. So from here, do you remember if I have to draw on my next ellipse, will it be a flattened ellipse or will it be a open ellipse as we start to move up?
Open.
It'll be flattened. So if
Like you'll
we're
do one
looking
on top and like you'll do two circles kind of a thing.
yeah, so this
Yeah.
ellipse at the bottom is wider than this ellipse at the top. So you see how flattened it is at the top? So we need to flatten it. So that
Uh,
means for this actual camera, um, where this top ellipse is, it was closer to its eye level for its lens. So we still want to make sure we're keeping that in mind. So the top one, you would do the same thing. You would draw in a more flatter rectangle, if that makes sense. um, and you want to come in with an X and you want to follow the same process that you did at the bottom to get in your top ellipse for your cylinder. Um, I'm going to give you some time to do that and then we'll move on to the cube after that. Get through it. That way you have time to finish the drawing. But
okay.
of course, when we're doing this type of ellipse, this is a more intuitive ellipse. It's not using perspective because remember, perspective
Okay.
is the accurate method. So the don'ts that you don't want to do. So if you are drawing your ellipses and you're seeing points on the corners are vertical points, what's happening is when
Uh,
you get to a point, you want to start to curve out and then you want to turn and meet another point.
okay.
This will help eliminate the pinching of the corners, whether they're horizontal or vertical. So another thing that you can run into that sometimes I'll see, the football shape is one because this is kind of the football shape. Another one, I used to do this, and I always tell my students that I would draw a racetrack. So I'll have straight, straight, curve, curve, right?
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes that can happen. I typically see that when the ellipse start to flatten out. So if you're seeing any of these shapes, just let yourself know that, okay, this is wrong, right? And you have
Okay.
to correct it. Another one that I see when the ellipse really starts to open up is I start to see kind of a, make sure I have enough room. I start to see a diamond shape. So it's like this kind of shape that tends to happen. So if you see the diamond shape, what's happening is the student is not hitting a point and then continuing to curve to the next point, continuing to curve to the
Uh,
next point. So just know if you see that shape as well, just tell yourself, okay, that's not accurate. I need to curve, make sure I continue to curve as I'm moving to points.
okay.
Um, so thank you for even saying that because I did not go over that at all. Okay, so during the lecture, I know I talked about making sure you understand what perspective you're seeing, right? So
Hmm.
for us in the photo, we are seeing a corner. So that's telling us we have a left and right plane. Um, so that tells us we have 2 point perspective because we have a left and right plane. So when we're drawing this intuitively from a photo, we want to make sure we're getting our vertical corner. So we want to make sure we draw that in. I do want to make sure I pay attention to where it lands in a relationship to
Mm.
the cylinder because that's going to help me with proportions, right? So because I have that line there, that's going to allow me to draw my vertical line in hopefully the right spot. So I do remember that this is kind of where it was. So I'm just going to end this here. So I know this is my vertical line. So from here, I need to make sure I'm paying attention to this angle that's here and getting the right direction of that actual angle. Same thing here, this angle that's on the table plane. So I want to make sure I'm getting that right angle. So how we can do this is I can use my pencil to angle. So what I'm going to do is I have this angle. I'm going to move this paper and I want to line this angle up to my vertical line.
Mm.
So I'm going to draw it out. And this is just going to be a supporting line because I still want to make sure this angle is right. So I'm going to go back to my photo. I'm lining my pencil up with that angle. I'm moving back and it's pretty accurate. I'm a little off in some areas. So where you see a difference, that's when you know, okay, I need to adjust my line just a bit.
Okay.
So I'm going to do the same for this angle that's here. I'm lining it up with my pencil and I'm going to make sure that I'm in the right line for you in the screen. So I'm going to move the paper and I'm going to line it up to my vertical line. And now that I have that angle, I'm going to draw that angle. Then I'm going to double check the angle again just to make sure I drew it accurately. And once again, I was a little off. So you can see Jury has issues with angles. So double checking it. And I need a line in between the two. So this angle that's here is the accurate angle. This angle that is here is the accurate angle that we need. So remember with that handout, we want to make sure we're getting this vertical line in because that describes our corner. We want to make sure that our left plane is on the table in the right angle. We also want to make sure the right plane is on the table and it's the right angle. So from there, of course, we want to draw all of our vertical points. Vertical. And I'm going to converge my back plane line. So I wanted to go in the same direction, but remember, we don't want it to be parallel. So I'm just going to draw the line over. So that means this line is, as it starts to move back, it's slowly converging together or coming together. So you want to make sure you're thinking about that. Same thing
Okay.
for this line here. I want to make sure that I am transfer that line over to this corner, but I want to make sure that it's not parallel, it's converging to that line. So now I just got my bottom plane in. So from here, this vertical line that's here, we need our back plane vertical line. And once again, we can use our photo um, to figure out where this back plane line is in relationship to our cylinder. So what I can see is that this line falls a little bit under the same width as the sphere. So now that I have that, I want to start to connect my top plane. So remember, this line has to converge with this line, but it's not going to be parallel. It's going in the same direction. Same with this connection here. It's going to converge, but it's not parallel. It just gets smaller as it starts to move back. So I'm extending out my lines just so you can see that they start to come together. Um, so now we got that part of our top plane. We're gonna use this line again to get in our top plane here. We just wanted to converge but not be parallel. So as you can see, we're flattening out our bottom plane and our top plane so it moves into space. So we don't want it to pop towards us. We want to flatten it out. I just realized I just missed my whole marking part. The part that I marked. Oh my God. Get it together, Jerry. There we go. There we go. Erase that out. All right. So the last line that we will need is we need to connect the back plane line. So we're still using the same line. We just don't want it to be parallel. We just want to make sure we're making our marks. And we can look and see if that's the same distance that we're seeing from our photo. So I'm using the photo to correct as well. And it looks about the same distance. I do have wobbly vertical lines, just kind of keep that in mind. That's what a
My
ruler.
cube is still looking a little crazy.
All right, let me see what it is. That way I can help you correct. Let me remove it. Let me pin you. So what I'm seeing is your lines, what's happening is this line is moving up.
Uh,
This line is still up at this point, and then it comes down. So you see how the top part is popping towards us versus
oh
moving
yeah.
into space. So that means you have to bring these lines down and connect them together.
Okay.
And you probably have to do it for your bottom plane too.
The cube is really tough.
It's a tough
You know, hard
cookie.
time like seeing and really even picturing how to even correct the cube.
Yeah. It's just that I do know um you have to just flatten it and bring it down into space.
Hmm.
So if you're seeing this kind of overall shape that's here, just know, okay, that is popping towards me versus moving away from me into space. And really, it's just bringing these lines down further, and that helps us get a better idea that, oh, that top plane is moving into space versus being popped up towards us.
Okay. Mm. So it needs to flatten the top.
Yeah, and hopefully bringing it closer to the camera helps. Where
You
you can
what?
see it. I said, hopefully bringing it closer to the camera helps where you can
Oh
see it.
yeah.
Sorry for the cast shadow of the phone.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so what we have like 13 minutes. So I'm just
Okay.
gonna allow you to have the rest of the class period to continue to work on this. And then a little bit before 9:30 for you, I'll check and see where your drawing is. Because really it just sounds like you're just correcting right now.
Okay. Would it be okay if I corrected on my own and then try to show you maybe